Have you ever thought that you enjoy the Southern vampire mysteries or True Blood, but would prefer it if it were less raunchy so you could share it with your kids or conservative parents? Do you wish there were a good witch adventure not written by a TERF who harasses intersex people? Well, then you might enjoy Cattywampus. Cattywampus by Ash Van Otterloo is a children's witchy adventure set in Appalachia. Van Otterloo is not intersex, but they are non-binary and transmasculine and use he/they pronouns. Plus, they come from Appalachia. They represent an intersex character as one of the two main characters. Girls who foolishly try to use magic to improve their lives, only for it to go cattywampus. For those less versed in regional slang, cattywampus means some kind of distortion, disorder, basically something that's gone foobar. And the author Van Otterloo uses it to mean not straight, as a euphemism for Katie Bird, one of his protagonists, being queer. The story is set in the impoverished town of Howler's Hollow, where it's an open secret that some families have magical powers. Specifically, the McGill and Hearn families are rival families of witches, with magic power passed down through maternal lines, and they hate each other's guts in a long-standing feud analogous to the Hatfield and McCoy feud. The daughters of these families, Delpha McGill and Katie Bird Hearn, grow up believing that magic is a complete secret only known to these families, but the whole town is loosely aware of it and just know not to talk about it. Delpha's family is going through dire straits from poverty, so she wants to use magic to not have to worry about money. Problem is, her mother forbids the use of magic, so she must practice it in secret. On the other hand, Katie Bird is allowed to use magic, but her coming-of-age puberty magic isn't anything like her family has ever described, and she is concerned that she might not have proper witch magic due to being intersex. She has androgen insensitivity syndrome, XY chromosomes and internal testes in place of ovaries, but otherwise appears and identifies as a girl. And she has suffered bigoted treatment from the local church group, so she's especially insecure about how much she counts as female to the supernatural force that gives women their power in the family. Looking for support from the only real peer in her community, Katie Bird tries to reach out to Delpha, but doesn't know how to relate to someone from a different social class. And Delpha mistakes her for intentionally being a jerk, in line with the feud, and pushes back, which Katie Bird interprets as intentionally being aggressive in line with the feud. When Delpha later asks her for help after screwing up a spell, Katie Bird decides to commit to the feud and tries to screw her over to take her power for herself, causing the runaway magic to grow increasingly cattywampus. What results is a night full of adventure, as the two young witches reenact their family's long-standing feud, while trying to grow into their own as witches in a town that doesn't accept them, in an echo of the complicated relationship that they share with their own families. When the cattywampus magic causes a group of their ancestors to rise from the grave and fight their feud as zombies, they realize that they must work together to protect their families from the antagonism of the feud, manifested in actual monsters. The night is full of revelations, from the reveal that there's a local family where the men have power, to a long-lost relative, to a general reveal that most people in the town are aware of magic and just treat it as an open secret. The power of friendship saves the day. I'm being a little vague here because the details don't actually matter that much to my analysis of the book as an intersex narrative. It's a good book, but it's not very complicated, and I don't want to give everything away. It's not complicated enough that I feel the need to dissect every little element of it. I hope that you would read it and get something out of it. This is a fun story, suitable for young readers. The publisher recommends ages 8 and up. Though older readers might find it a little simplistic in terms of their general taste in fantasy adventures, I think the folksy charm and clever turns of phrase might just win them over. It has the feel of a particularly witty country song. My favorite line is, "Her mouth clenched up like a cat's behind." What a weird, evocative sentence. Though your mileage may vary on tokenism versus authentic representation, I think Van Otterloo did a great job of weaving queer representation into a narrative focused on the struggles of young witches. Aside from Katie Bird, there is a side character with two mothers, very casually mentioned. There's also a use of asthma that seems realistic and respectful, not at all Goonies' use of it as a metaphor for cowardice. In general, there's this sense of different people existing in the same community, just like anyone in any community. The depiction of Katie Bird as an intersex character is excellent. Van Otterloo carefully illustrates how she is a girl, perceives herself as such, but also has a non-standard sexual makeup. The bigotry from the neighbors and the anxiety this produces is realistic and carefully woven into the story. The fact that Katie Bird's family power is concentrated in the female line makes her anxieties about being intersex tied into the main plotline about the two girls trying to learn magic, which goes a long way to keep the intersex representation from feeling contrived or tokenistic. In an interview with Geeks Out, Van Otterloo said, "Writing Katie Bird was a unique undertaking. I need to familiarize myself not only with many first-hand perspectives of others and the concrete details of what it means to be androgen insensitive, Katie's specific intersex experience, but I also had to become quite clear on how Katie's experiences and mine intersected or diverged. Being non-binary like me, which has to do with the cultural construct of gender, is different from being intersex, which is a distinct physical experience. Many people who are intersex are also trans/non-binary, while others identify strongly with their gender assigned at birth. I decided to write Katie's character because many people from my home region view both gender and sex as attached purely to a very binary categorization of humanity, based on physical sex characteristics. You're one or the other, when this is simply not true. Katie's arc speaks to anyone who feels misunderstood or undervalued within their home culture and encourages them to recognize their uniqueness as a crucial and precious gift to the community around them. There is one part that feels a bit heavy-handed, but might be important enough to not matter so much whether it comes across as a contrived message or not. Stating that her doctor recommended surgery to remove her internal testes, but her mother went online to an intersex community and learned that it was important for Katie Bird's psychological well-being to not do this kind of unnecessary surgery just to conform to the binary model of sex and gender. It is important to communicate to the various parents out there that they shouldn't go along with suggestions of unnecessary surgeries, just in case they wind up having intersex kids. So I can't get too annoyed by it, but it does feel a bit heavy-handed. It's tempting to compare to Ring, which also has a magic character with androgen insensitivity syndrome who grew up in a conservative small town. The town on Izu Oshima is depicted as so conservative that it's a stifling environment for Sadako, who's never allowed to tell anyone about her intersex condition. This at least contributes to the factors that cause her to become a murderous ghost. Having superpowers plus being unable to open up to the people in your community is a recipe for disaster. Howler's Hollow has its problems with intolerance, but it also has kind-hearted individuals who Katie Bird can open up to and look to for emotional support. The fact that her mother can go online and talk to intersex adults to get their advice about how to take care of an intersex kid is a good aspect of modern American culture that could have saved Sadako if it were available to her in 1950s Japan. Overall, Cattywampus has a great depiction of being intersex and a fun children's adventure. It might be a little too simplistic for adult readers, but for parents reading to kids, for families, I think it's great. Give it to your kids, read it with your kids. Enjoy Cattywampus.